Hi. So here we are discussing 21st century literature. Today's topic is readership, I think. I think it's readership. Yeah. So we have, of course, you know them all. Mitra Kupar, very well-known writer in English from Assam. And I'm Antara Devsen. I work for a magazine called The Little Magazine. This is Raman Shrestha from Sikkim, runs an extremely interesting independent bookshop. And Meena Kandaswamy, who clearly is the star of the show, and a poet, activist, writer, was in Phul and Devi garb last night, and here we are discussing Indian literature in the 21st century. Should we start with you, Mitra? That's not a good idea. Okay. Meena, always a good idea to start with her. In the 21st century, what exactly is readership? I'm not quite sure, because readership, there is an audience and there is a target audience, and the author might have a target audience in mind, which might be very different from what the actual readership is, or what the actual audience is. So perhaps we can talk about what your target audience is, or whether you have a target audience, and what you imagine it to be.
I think my target audience will be anybody who reads English, since if you want to aim, you really want to aim high. But I think the other kind of slight problem that happens is that when you're a poet, and if you're on a readership panel, basically, I think you're the nominal, you're in the position of speaking about how there is no readership. So I'm the one who's going to basically keep lamenting about the lack of readership, while other people can imagine the readership or talk about the specifics of having a readership. And the only thing that for me especially was that when I was writing, I was just writing into what I think is a void, or the fact that there would be somebody who can understand and who would be picking it up. But a part of the thing was that, of course, yeah, you can publish me, or Indian literature publishes you the poems, and then it gets noticed. But what I understand now as a poet is that there are more people who say they read me or heard of my work than I naturally would, that the book says never reflects. So, and you assume, where does this readership come from? And much as I despise the university system or the academia, I think I don't even know how it works, or I can't put my finger on it, but what I feel is that sometimes, even if it's just one poem of yours that gets included in the syllabus, and students poetry, and that's something that as a reader, as a poet, I would be very, I think it's, in spite of all the problematic posturing of what it means to be a university, it's one thing which will really reach younger people's audience and get right.
The problem that I have with this is, having come from a media background, I've been a journalist for years and years, my problem is that everybody seems to be targeting a younger readership, which is for me actually not such a welcome idea, because yes, younger readers, a younger audience, everybody is into the MTV, MTV generation. But there is life beyond 24 or whatever, I mean, we don't all just crumple up and die the moment you turn 25. We also want to read, and why not target an audience that is, more intellectually defined than slotted by age. I think all marketing mechanisms are slotted by age, and they go by the generation, or they go by housewives. This is good. Oh, you're writing a novel. Make it romantic so that housewives can read it. or so they have this stereotype in their head, stereotypes, and they want to fit everything into that. And the most worrying, I think, is the stereotype of approaching the youngster or the young audience. There's a good side, which is that might lead to youngsters actually reading, because young people don't read too much. They write. And that is another problem that I have. Everybody seems to be writing. Nobody seems to be reading. Earlier you had like 20 readers for one author. Now you have 20 authors for one reader. And it's very difficult to actually survive either as a reader or as an author in that case. So, Nitsa, do you want to comment or?
Yeah, about readership, I don't really know, because you were saying, what is your ideal readership, target readership, and so on. Basically, I just want to be read. That's it. I don't even want to be bought so much. People can borrow my books, people can use tattered copies of somebody else, and sales figures, it's nice if they skyrocket, but I don't really mind so much, as long as, I don't want my books to be just there. I want them to be read. And then when it comes to this profile of the reader, I don't know. I want, basically, we all, I think, write to communicate something in different ways. So what I just want to be understood. I want to be understood where I'm coming from and what is it that is happening around me. And this is, I feel that all of us, everybody here, we are trying to communicate something that is, first of all, unique to us as individuals, and secondly, unique to us in other ways, whether it is as a social group or a political group or an environmental group, whatever it is. So these two things are always there. And so basically, at that point, the age does not come in. I don't see either the lined face or the unlined face.
You're specifically writing for children. A children's writer would probably target children, hopefully.
I have written for children. I have written for children, and I find that adults read me as much as children. So I don't.
Yeah, that's a good thing about it. That's one positive thing about being a children's author. Parents also read you, and very often they read it out, and sometimes they just continue to read it, like I do after my child has gone to sleep. I'm like, okay, so what happens? And I go on reading something. Raman, you have this bookshop, which is an independent bookshop, and you have a certain kind of customer, I guess, that who. And probably, that's the other thing is that independent bookshops are a dying tribe, because now you have these chain bookstores, and you have Flipkart and Amazon, and you have all these things that make life just so much simpler for the lazy person, and we're all either lazy or old. Like I am old. I don't want to admit that I am lazy. So you just sit at home and order your books. So what do you look for when you're actually, when you cater, who do you cater to? What do you have in mind when you're furnishing your bookshop with books?
I guess I've been lucky that way, because I grow big books myself, and it's a gut instinct which luckily for me has been worked, which has worked, and that probably comes from being surrounded by those when I was growing up. And another thing is like, it's not just, now we have come to a time and age when, I remember the time when there used to be books around in the house, right? And then the television came in, and it's not so much about age specific, but as an independent bookseller, anybody who walks in is there's a not only customer, there's a sea of universes within each book, and there's so much for everybody. And it's just that with the television, one generation I feel kind of forgot to read, and the next generation which came up grew up without knowing reading as a leisure thing. So it's not just about children's books. I mean, when a child or a youngster comes in looking for a book, I think independent bookshops and booksellers there play a role of kind of helping find the right book or shape. It's a relationship we build. I mean, I have some people, youngsters who have a specific book in mind, which is just a college pulp fiction or something, which sells for cheap. And I always kind of I tell them, like, this is a good book, you can buy it, but here's another great book for the same price. So the choice is yours. I mean, if you don't like this, you can always bring it back. I take it back. You can take this, but there's always a better option. Classics. For 99 rupees, 100 rupees, I mean, timeless books. I mean,
Discounts.
No, I don't. I mean,
How can you get people to buy if you don't give discounts?
I do. I have to, because but then again, coming to
So
discounts.
you do give discounts?
Yes, I have.
Got you there.
So I have met other fellow independent booksellers who refuse to give a discount because it's actually their resistance to Flipkart and the discount that come. But my fight is not so much with the customers as it is with the publishing world and the marketing agencies, Because, see, we've had a relationship with any one distributor or a publisher for the last 20, 29 years. And suddenly a new agent comes in, which is online or whatever, chain store, and they buy a same title for thousands of copies, and then on that basis they give bigger discount. Whereas, what about the relationship we build, over so many, I mean, what happens to that?
Has the face of the book buyer changed in these 2 decades?
It is changing, I guess so, yes. At times, I mean, it's more often than not, I think it's the youngsters who are putting the elders in the bookshelf.
See, elders with their bad knees, they want to sit at home and order on Flipkart. So that's the thing. How many of us actually go out and buy books?
You got it.
Buy books.
Yeah. I don't, for some reason I don't buy online because there's, even though Amazon lets you, read 4 or 5 pages or something, one is that for a long time I never had a card to buy books. The first time I tried to apply for the credit card, I said, what are you working as? I said, poet. He said, go back, go away. So there's no credit card that Amazon doesn't take debit card. So I think Flipkart does, but that I realized very late. I like to just browse through and get, does this book hook me? Because there's no point of wasting your time on something that you're not interested in. And in that sense, of course, I like the physical touch and feel.
I think that is exactly what a bookshop gives you,
Yeah.
that any other means of buying a book doesn't, because you can actually feel a book, smell a book. I love the smell
And you also have this amazing discovery that you suddenly make, you just
you come across books that you didn't know you wanted so badly to buy, which doesn't happen online. So that's why bookshops, as we were talking about it earlier, we in Delhi had a bookshop called the Little Bookshop, which was an extension of the Little magazine. It led us badly for 3 years, after which I had to shut it down. Because we didn't want to have textbooks and all kinds of other books which sell. So naturally, if you don't have books that sell, you can't run a bookshop for too long. So we didn't. But the whole romantic notion of walking into a bookshop, spending like 3 hours there, just going through books, browsing, reading, till somebody comes and tells you, are you buying or not? If you're not buying, then please leave. Yeah, exactly.
Yes, this is the ideal thing that you're talking about. Absolutely, that is my idea of heaven. But I live in a place where heaven perhaps does not exist. The bookshops are just not there. This kind of bookshop is not there. I know, Raman, that this is the kind of thing that as soon as I read that, oh, so-and-so has got a book up, I want it. But I know it will not come to the bookshops in my town, in my city. So I have and then I can't wait forever to get to Delhi or Bangalore or even to Sikkim. What I have to order from Flipkart. Flipkart is made for people like us who live in cities like ours, and according to some kind of survey that they have for these things, not just books, but these online stores sell most in regions like ours, where people want the Star, but they are not available in the shops. Which is, I agree, a poor second, but at least it's a second, it's an option. And it doesn't allow you that freedom of browsing and smelling the book and all that, but at least you get the book.
What about comments from readers, feedback? How important a role does feedback play in what you write? I know that in journalism, especially interactive is the word. You know, everything has to be interactive. I don't know why, but apparently it does. Has that influenced? I mean, has feedback influenced you, or I mean, as a poet, perhaps not, but as a fiction writer, what do you think?
Feedback has not influenced me, not in, trying to change my way of writing, not that, because the way in which all of us write, I think is, it's uniquely us. I mean, otherwise it wouldn't be our writing. But, we get these Google alerts and so on, so then something that's kind of online, then you go through it, and if it's good, you feel, oh, nice, and if it's not so good, then you feel, okay, it's not, but it doesn't really change anything. But sometimes I wish, that some people, they haven't got my book. It's a totally weird idea of what they are saying. What I try to put across in a short story and what they have got from the short story are two different things. So I want to sometimes correct that, not correct, just give my view of it. But I don't let that influence my further writing.
In terms of feedback, I think with poetry, of course, it's one kind of feedback is, of course, people like it, or they come back and tell you that it was good, or they like to hear, or they write these long emails and say, okay, this is so moving, this is so fierce, and sometimes I think, at least with me, because I wouldn't be writing if I was not political. So the fact is that sometimes I understand how much more sharp and how much more distilled and how much more you should actually take on things, because you realize that the poem is just not, these random 80 words that you throw together. That it has, and you never realize that when you're actually writing for the first time, because for you it's just a beautiful, piece of work. But the minute it actually goes out into the world and then you get all kinds of reactions, then you understand that there is a sense of responsibility you cultivate. In spite of, being, let's say, a very indisciplined person, you understand that this is a piece of work that has a life of its own, and I think I never reacted in terms of feedback, because it's either people saying, these are nice, just like saying you're looking nice, that's how I've always reacted to it. I didn't know that it can actually move someone or what does it do to them, but once, like, in Kerala they were burning the translated copies of my book, Sparsham, and then because the BJP was burning it because they said it's offending Gandhi, the Congress was also burning it because it's offending Gandhi, and Ramesh Chennakala, who is the Congress state secretary, said she shouldn't enter the stage. And then I realized, and this was only like in 2012 last year, and then I realized that basically you're sitting on top of a volcano or something like that. And that's a kind of feedback. If someone's going and burning your books, or telling that you shouldn't enter the stage, and these two opposition parties are speaking in one same, and it also happened that I was published by the Marxist Party. So it was a beautiful triangle as far as, and this is all about just one single poem. I don't think a lot of people even read the poem or read the rest of the book at all, and I don't think it was a great poem in terms of anything. It was just an angry poem, and the translation was
Like the Bapu poem,
the Bapu poem,
which we published.
And that's published for the first time, And also the fact is the translation was very muted. In fact, for a word like fool, or a word like fool, the word they used was buddhi shunya. It was not, something that's hurting. This buddhi shunya means the one who doesn't think, or the one who thinks. It's such a soft word, and then I think in that kind of feedback, it just changes your whole idea about writing. And then when I was writing this other novel, I realized, and this was the feedback book, if there's only one book I'm going to be allowed to write, let it be that book. So you just push yourself into, knowing that how limited your time is, and also how precious this is, because you don't know how long you'll be allowed to function in this manner, or will you be functioning in this manner, or will you be
That is probably a problem that not just writers face, but also artists of every any kind face in India, because we have become an extremely intolerant, we not have become, but are becoming an extremely intolerant society, and where somehow, anything, if you digress from the mainstream point of view, then anybody seems to think that they have the right to come and, burn.
They're not readers at all.
No, they're not readers, they're the mob. It's called mob frenzy. So that's different, but they're a mob on hire, and they'll go for anything, you just raise an issue and they'll be there. That is the problem. But again, I'll ask this specifically to you, Meena, because of the fact that, as you earlier you did highlight the Dalit identity a lot. I mean, you talked about, which is also where the Bapu poem comes from. And I personally thought it was a takeoff from Sylvia Plath's Daddy. Yeah. So now that kind of when you have a political reason to write a poem, in any case you're going to ruffle feathers because you're coming from a position. So that happens, I think, with other writers also who take a political line. Yeah. So that is something that you already know that it's going to happen.
Yeah, you expect it. If it's a political novel, poem of course, novel, you expect it. Though I think even so, sometimes the virulence of the attack you don't expect. That you feel this way, and it's a personal thing that you're feeling. But then in that case, why that reaction? Let me share something. This Connector's Wife, my novel. I got a reader who said that I have trivialized the Assam movement. Now that for me was pretty radical, and it is not what I have done. And then I felt the need to kind of address this, and so I asked him, why do you think that? And because this is something that is totally against my political beliefs, trivializing the Assam movement and so on. But then he explained and I explained, and we agreed amicably to remain on both sides of the fence. But the thing is, and nobody actually burned anything, but this thing but I did not expect this reaction. Perhaps you had expected.
No, I'll get into this. There are two questions here. One is that in the beginning you assume that generally, like when you're trying to write or get a readership, you think people are basically out there just ignoring you, not taking, and all of a sudden, these things start happening, and then everybody's like, she's this controversy-monging person, and that's not exactly who you are or what you are. You don't know if you should own up to it and say, yes, I want controversy, yes, I'm like playing to the gallery or something. And that's one aspect of it in which you get typecasted as somebody, anything that you say, and then immediately it also becomes that whenever there's a controversy, someone wants a statement from you. So what do you think of Peshwa? What do you think of this? And you don't want to comment on every single thing. So it becomes like you're this controversy generating, this soundbite giving person which is totally away from what you are as a writer. You just want to be a simple writer based things that you can write. The second thing in terms of the Dalit identity is also, after I started writing at 17 or something, right? And that was how, that was my initial work. And later, like when I started reading much more of Marxist literature, I myself turned a lot away from identity politics. And I understand that, there are larger questions to you address, that you have to couple them. And also when you're part of, again, the same thing with the readership is that there is a readership that probes, okay, but you're claiming to be a Dalit, but your mother is like, let's say, a Shudra woman. So you're only, you're half Shudra already. So, and then when they start looking into these bloodlines from, let's say, 3-4 generations, and then how do you even want to go there? Because you don't believe in it. And do you say, okay, I'm 1/8 of this, 1/6 of that, and then you understand how trivial it is even for you to own up to that identity. So there's 1/16 of something, maybe something. And then at that point of time, and this is a readership thing, and it's a very readership thing, because people who are readers are very keen to know where you exactly come from. And then at that point of time, you think that, and it's also your own political maturity. I think that my work is, certainly changing, at least in terms of politics. I used to work with very political parties. Now I'm much more aligned with the radical left. So when I see how that affects my writing or how I would be articulating, is just caste the only identity that I care about, or are there other structural oppressions that I think should be simultaneously addressed? How about the issue of gender? So are evolving.
Yeah, you are evolving. We have 5 minutes, I'm told. So then, if you're all okay with it, can we open?
To the radical left. So when I see how that affects my writing or how I would be articulating, is just caste the only identity that I care about, or are there other structural oppressions that I think should be simultaneously addressed? How about the issue of gender? So you are evolving.
Yeah, you are evolving. We have 5 minutes, I'm told. So then, if you're all okay with it, can we open it to the okay, come on.
I'd just like to share something. Like in regard to
The mic is not on.
Hello. It's in regard to the feedback that we get and angry readers coming in. Sometimes what happens is like I keep a lot of independent books which are published regionally or from other in the Northeast, and if somebody doesn't like what they read, then they see the bookseller as the face of the author, the publication, and we have to bear a lot of that, you know. So that's also one side of the story that, yeah, I mean, there we are, you know.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we get a lot of angry letters as a magazine, but of course, thankfully, because we are a niche magazine, so to speak, we haven't yet been burnt. There are advantages of having a low circulation, so to speak. Okay, here, any questions? I see a lot of people there who I'm sure. Yes.
Question for Mr. Raman. My name is Jose Lorenzo from Goa. I have a question for Mr. Shrestha. This relationship in your bookshop, book buyers come in, they chat with you, they browse the books and then they buy a book. They may ask you, what about this book? How is it? What would you recommend? I presume you have this relationship with the buyers that frequent your shop. Do you see that happening more with the older readers than the younger ones? Are the younger ones very shallow and they just come in and they go out? Whereas the older readers, middle-aged and older, are more likely to develop a relationship with you, because I have always also toyed with opening a little fringe bookshop. So I would like to know your experience on this loyalty in terms of older readers, younger readers, and the relationship they develop with you and your bookshop.
Well, for me, it's a relationship.
Hello.
For me, I think it's been mostly...
Hold the mic closer.
Hello.
For me, it's been more about the youngsters, you know. I mean, there have been students who used to come and you sit and you talk, and then it goes from one visit to another visit to another visit over a long period of time. And I think I've been running the bookshop for almost 12 years now. And the relationship that has grown, I mean, the elders, they were readers before, but for me, it's more rewarding when you see a youngster grow up and, you know, and for me, it's my personal experience is that a lot of these young people who have come over the years are now professionals who are you know, masters and they are pursuing their further. Now when they come back, I find that, there was a time when I used to send out emails if I like Monikani painting, I used to share it with them over email or Facebook, you know, I have a common list of people I would like to send it and share it with. Now they come back and I learn so much from them because of the education they have been getting, which I did not.
Yes, Mr. Well, yeah, there you have it. Do you want to comment on it? Because you have to wind up.
Yeah, actually there are stories that you write and stories that people get and people don't get. That is part of it, but I think that's also part of the excitement of it. And I think this, you know, this easier modes of communication and easier modes of getting back and getting feedback, it's wonderful. And you see that, hey, I wrote this, but this is what they got from it. Usually I feel okay, you know, as you said, I feel it's okay. But then sometimes when it is so absolutely absurd, you feel the pictures.
That is not to even start talking about critics who read all kinds of things that the authors may never have even dreamt of. But so that is it, the readership issue, and thank you all for being here. Thank you.